what are you doing? Like, you're handing me these treats. Like, is there pot in this? And like,
oh, that's the first question we always get.
Yeah.
Is there weed in this? No.
Rachel, hey, welcome to the Question and the Answers podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's been a little bit of a back and forth via email trying to coordinate a good time to get you on here, but I've been really curious to get you on here because I want to learn more about what it is that you're involved with Feed the Scene. And
Me
I thought
too.
and I thought it'd be really great to have you on here to discuss that because it sounds like it's just a really great organization. Doing a lot of great work where you're at, and not only where you're at, but in other areas too. And
yeah, we hit the globe.
yeah, that's awesome. And so I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you're doing well. I mean, given this crazy time, and right out of the gate, I just kind of want to give you a brief introduction. So this is Rachel Taft, and she is one of the principal members of the Feed the Scene organization.
I'm technically the founder and owner.
Oh, well, okay. So there you go. That's something that I didn't fully understand either. So thank you for clarifying.
I invented it.
Yeah. So there we go. She's the owner and founder of Feed the Scene. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about your organization and tell everyone how they can get involved and what it is that you do. So basically, without further ado, I'd love to hear about where the organization started, like,
Sure.
why you started it, what you're doing.
Feed the Scene is a very interesting entity that has been many things throughout the last 10 years of my life. It started basically, sad parts first. My mom passed away 11 years ago. And coming out of that, I was really sad. And I was dealing with a lot of depression. And I took some time off from a lot of responsibility. And I decided I was going to go see as much music as I could and go to as many concerts as I could and do as much stuff to try to make me as happy as possible because I had the ability to for that period of time. And I had a bunch of friends who were in the music industry and they were telling me all these horror stories of places they had stayed and how they had no money and no food when they were on the road. And so it kind of started as a joke. Like I had dinner parties for bands before shows. That's why it was called Feed the Scene, because originally we just fed people. So I would find the direct support bands for larger shows or bands on smaller shows at smaller venues who I knew weren't getting riders or, tour or anything. And we would just message and be like, hey, do you want to come over for dinner? And they would be like, what? The first band that we ever fed was actually the Dopamines. And they showed up on my porch and they were so confused. I was like, no. I'm okay. I'm a really just nice person. This is fine. And they had dinner and we're all still really good friends. So it's really cool that they were one of the first people that we ever fed. But so eventually we were able to actually start housing people. We had a room full of bunk beds. We started with a room full of air mattresses. And that was a little ridiculous because it was like having a giant bouncy house floor of a room. So it was cool for a second. Then anytime anyone had to go to the bathroom, everyone got up and your face was in the floor for 5 seconds while someone stepped on the side of your mattress. And then you were ejected to the other side because there was no room to step. So then we came up with bunk beds. So then we started actually housing people. And within the first year, we actually did a Kickstarter for those bunk beds and we raised like $6,000 in a very limited amount of months to get this done. And it was pretty funny because we really weren't very known at that point. Like everything was I I didn't even do the initial introduction. We're a free band hostel and concert promotion production company. Ta-da. I'm just giving you the whatever we are and hoping you figure it out.
Right.
So we, no one knew us at that point. We were pretty much, we were just I was telling my friends that if they had people that they knew needed a place to sleep, they could come crash at my house or come get a meal here. So we were basically entirely word of mouth. So the fact that we were able to raise $6,000 in I think it was like a month or two is kind of amazing. But a lot of it was band members and their parents. And they're like, oh, cool. By $20, I have a bed forever in Baltimore. Sweet. This sounds like a great option. Why would I not? How could I lose? So after our first year, we ended up, I threw my first show ever, and it was 12 bands, and I will never do that again.
Yeah. 12 bands is a lot.
Halfway through my show, I didn't want to be there anymore. I was so tired. I had no idea what I was doing. It was very fun. We had a great time, but it was ridiculous. And I didn't throw any shows for a while after that.
If you don't mind me asking, who were some of the bands on that first show?
Oh God, I don't. I think only 2 of them still exist. Maybe. Okay. Like, I don't think any of them still exist anymore. A lot of those people are in other bands now, but I'd have to go back and look at the actual flyer. Our headliner Trash Canistan was local, and they ended up having to cancel because they had a family emergency, and there's twins in the band. So it was literally 2/3 of the band was gone. So I had to find a headliner at 6 p.m. the last minute.
Wow.
And very luckily, my friends in the Bumpin' Uglies who lived in Annapolis and still do, I knew them before they became, as big as they are now, if you know them. And they were like, yeah, we'll come play. You have leftover dinner? Cool. Yeah. So they came in, showed up, and played to whoever was left. And then we ate a lot of whatever I had made for dinner.
Nice.
But so, slowly after that, we were housing more people. The word of mouth was spreading. We've never had to advertise because you don't have to advertise. When people want a place to sleep, they'll find you. That's not true. I've definitely hit up some bands and been like, hey, do you need a place to stay? Especially if they're out of town. We have housed somewhere between 14 and 1,500 bands from, I think it's 27 different countries around the world. And it's all genres. And that's individual bands, not how many times they've been here. I've had some bands that have come through 10 or 12 times at this point.
Wow.
So sometimes we have a lot of human beings in my house.
Right. Gosh, I mean, it's so I
do a lot of laundry.
Yeah.
So many sheets.
That's such an awesome thing to do, because it seems like it's such a simple act of just generosity, but it goes a long way. And as anyone,
and a lot of people do that, but I don't know if anyone else does it as on purpose as I do.
Yeah, no, it's really great that is something that you've kind of set out as your mission, is to this is just my contribution, to the scene.
And again, part that I skipped over from earlier when I was going to explaining is it was a symbiotic relationship for me, because I was going through the death of my mother, and I'm really good at hibernating, not seeing anybody. I at that time didn't have, I had work I could do from home. I didn't have to leave the house. So it was very easy to just not go outside. And I don't have to shower today, and I don't have to eat anything reasonable. And so to a certain extent, by making these commitments to people, I was keeping myself grounded in reality. It was I have to clean the house today. People are coming over. I can't have cupcakes and cheese for dinner. I have to eat real food, because we have to cook something, because I promised someone they would get dinner. And I need to bathe today because I'm going to see human beings. It was really, as much as they all needed me, I needed them too. So a lot of people in the beginning didn't really understand why I was doing it. And it was really hard to articulate in the beginning, because I didn't really realize it either at first. It took me probably 1.5 years into it to recognize that was really what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shoot, like anytime that you start something like this in earnest, with the intention to try to promote like some sort of a positive agenda, like outwardly,
Mm-hmm.
but then when you mix that with something that's like kind of like an inward, um, uh, I guess, solution, for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that that helps to kind of keep you going, so that
Yeah.
you can because I mean, like I think if you ask anyone that like starts to do something like a project like this that may not have a similar type of situation like yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're doing this in part to kind of help heal yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm
Um,
also very lucky. I ended up with a large enough space to be able to do this where I didn't bother my roommates. We've had so many people in our local music industry who have lived here at different times. Like I like taking care of people, and I basically built myself a giant family, and I adopted everyone, and everyone who stays here is my children, and you're always welcome, and the Wi-Fi connects when you pull up, and you know what bed is yours. I have 12 beds on my first floor alone, so our sofas turn into bunk beds.
that's awesome.
Like double
And
decker
like,
couches.
so you're saying so just remind me, you said it's anywhere from like 12 to 1400 individual bands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Sometimes several at a time. I
this is
actually have had bands that have met at my house and ended up going on tour together.
oh,
Don't ask me who it is, but I know it's happened.
so they're not always necessarily like from the
No,
same
not on the
bill.
same tour. No, we've had goth industrial bands eat dinner with pop punk bands. Some of the pictures of the old times are hilarious because you see two bands who are sitting there like staring at each other at the beginning of dinner, going, "Oh my god, who are these other human beings?" And then by the end of dinner, everybody's great friends.
Totally.
And then
That's
we all sit
awesome.
on the porch and tell stories, and it's fun.
Well, now, so you live in Baltimore,
Yes,
and so
I live in the city,
you live in the city of
inside the
Baltimore.
city. Yep.
Got it. And so you have this home that you've opened up to do this, and you say that you can fit like it's at least 12 beds. Like how many?
Yeah. So I have 4 sets of bunk beds, so that's 8 beds in one room, and then I have 2 sofas in the living room that both turn into bunk beds, so that's another 4 people, and then I can fit 3 other air mattresses in there. And then the room that I'm in right now has another pull-out sofa that fits 2, and I can fit another queen-size pull-out sofa on the floor. The most extra human beings I have had that were band members and not living at the house was 21.
Wow.
We've housed 21 extra people twice.
Jeez. Do you happen to have like a record book of like all the different
Somewhere,
band
yes.
names somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated to see that. Yeah.
It's a
Like,
lot.
well, I mean, off the top of your head, can you think of a few bands that you've had many times over the years?
We've had A Wilhelm Scream a bunch of times. We've had Big D and the Kids Table a couple times. Dopamines have stayed a bunch of times. Rebuilder. I mean, almost anyone going up and down to Fest. Jukebox Romantics have stayed a bunch of times. Trying to think. Oh, Joey Cape from Lagwagon has stayed here. Ronnie from Dead Milkmen has stayed here. Technically, the drummer from Eve 6 has stayed here.
That's awesome. Eve 6 is killing it on Twitter, by the way. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Like, who saw that coming?
I know, right? I mean, it's like Revenge of the 90s. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, are they
they're
really
doing such a good job of it too?
I'm sorry.
I said they're doing such a good job of it too.
No, it's true. Like they're just crushing it. I mean,
I've seen them a lot in concert because I actually like that band. So. Yeah.
I mean, hey, they wrote some good pop hooks.
I think they did. I'd still go see them. Like if they came through it and it wasn't a pandemic, I would go see them.
Right. Out of curiosity,
scream that out my car.
Out of curiosity, but prior to this whole thing starting, who were the last like couple bands that you had staying with you?
Oh God. I know Greg Rikus and Tom Holhouse, I think, might have been the last people that we had here. What does it say? I think that's it. Yeah, I think Greg Rikus and Tom Holhouse. And that was March 11th. So we were basically just about to, get out and not have any, like that was the end. We had Scared 2-0 that stayed before that, and Bearings and Sleep on It. Well, stayed. Oh, we had Joe Jack Talcum and Coolsey stay. And Joey Cape actually was just here with Chris Cresswell, because they did a local, like they did an acoustic tour. Dead Bars, Hassle, for lack of a term. Like it's just, it's a lot of bands.
Right. No, I mean that list is absolutely like a bunch of bands that I'm aware of, and like I'm sure that many people who are listening.
And that was like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, so that's all within the scope of 2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty much.
And now
it might have been 3.
Now, when you offer up like this to them, I mean, do you do like a donation kind of based thing, or is it purely just free?
So
like
I do have a donation bin in the hallway, but that's only if you have the ability to. Like some of our friends who have been coming here for years, over the years, who probably could afford their own hotel rooms now, but come and stay just because we're friends. Like they'll leave me donations to help cover stuff for some of the smaller bands that don't have the ability to, who they were years ago.
Right. And that
makes a lot of sense. For the most part, it's free for everyone. That's the whole point is, if it costs money, it's unaffordable. That's the problem that we exist in. And I want to make my city an attractive place to play music. I want you to want to come to Baltimore because you get sleep in your own bed that isn't gross and has clean sheets on it, and you don't have to sleep on a floor or with 17 other people, or someone's random roommate's going to come out in the morning and be really pissed that you're all in the way. Like the house is set up for this, and anyone who lives here knows that. Even we have Airbnb guests, and I even put this in the Airbnb room profiles because we always tell people like this is not a place for your romantic vacation, but we do get a lot of traveling doctors and nurses who don't know anybody at all, who some of them work night shifts and some, they work all different kinds of shifts. And I'm like, if you want to have someone to sit on the porch with at 2:00 in the morning and talk about random life, and you have no idea where they're from and you will never see them again, but you think that's neat, then this is definitely the place for you to stay.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it has like that hostel kind of vibe going on.
Oh yeah. I've brought Airbnb guests to shows.
Oh, that's
some
cool.
of them we keep. I have some of them that, because we're mostly long-term housing. So for the most part, the Airbnb guests that I get are like, 4 weeks to 6 or 8 months sometimes.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So at that point, we just steal them and they're my friends forever.
Right. And so beyond hosting bands and traveling artists to stay and eat there, you also book and promote shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is the booking that you do strictly in Baltimore?
No, I've booked shows from Boston to Florida.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we did a hometown faux down last year. There's a Boston's cover band that my friend Mark fronts, and they have hometown throwdown every year for the Boston's. We always end up there, and a lot of us go up a night early just to make sure that we don't hit snow or weather. So, a couple years ago, I asked Katz, I was like, what if we just had your whole cover band fly out and we just did a fake throwdown night? So it was fun. We had a great time. We did it 2 years in a row. Obviously, we didn't do it this year because there's no music industry. Right. But one of the Boston's actually showed up and sang with the cover band. It was fun. Christopher Rhodes
awesome.
Showed up.
Which Boston?
Christopher Rhodes.
Oh, the trombone player?
Trombonist, yeah.
Nice. I absolutely fucking love that band. They were like easily one of my favorite bands. Yeah.
This is the first year in almost, I think, a decade that I haven't been at Throwdown. Like I've been the last 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, that was, I remember when I first heard about them doing that, I had like this little dream of, I was like, oh, I'm going to go out there sometime and like see their hometown. Oh,
you should.
Throwdown.
We built a bar in a hotel room.
Oh, you guys did?
Yeah. Like out of plywood, we built an entire working bar with CO2 and everything.
That's rad.
It was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the bar staff, it was our shoe glue bar.
I've seen some footage of those hometown shows of theirs, and they always look great.
Oh man, they're so much fun.
Yeah, like I was really fortunate. I got to play a show in one of my old bands opening for them in the North Bay area in California, and they were super nice guys. And of course they put on,
they're all so nice. I love them.
Super nice. Yeah, nicest guy. I mean, like they're one of those bands that I think has honestly gotten better as they've gotten older. Yeah, like I mean, they already started out great, and like they're kind of like a fine wine where like you watch them
and they love their fans. Like Dickie will literally stand on stage at the end of each night of Throwdown and sign every single thing for every single person. And then my job is to give him cupcakes.
Yeah, no, I every time I've seen them, they just continue to blow my mind at how good they are. They're just tight, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, a little bit more about you guys doing shows. So you were mentioning to me before we started that you're putting together a like a little online fest, correct?
Yeah. So normally this time of year, I just became a part of it in the last couple of years. One Coast Entertainment does Frozen Harbor, which is a multi-genre, kind of similar to festival, but not. It's all genres, like hip hop and metal and everything included. Ish like Fest. We take over the power plant in Baltimore, like downtown in the harbor, and there's like 8 venues in there. So we just have like 8 shows running at the same time, and it's like a weekend. So it's 2 days, and then we have a brunch afterwards. So we're doing it again this year, or at least we're trying to. We're going to do a digital version of it. And, you know, some of it pre-recorded, some of it live with cleaning the venue in between with like, you know, a nice good hour or so in between live sets. But it's weird to be booking this way.
Right.
I mean, I'm used to having to plan like an entire show marketing plan and, you know, budget. And it's like, okay, everyone's donating their time or getting small amounts of whatever they need to help with production if they need it. But for the most part, like Frank and I aren't taking a single dime out of the festival. We're just trying to raise money for music venues and anyone in need, because we can't do what we do without them. You know, every time I read about a venue shutting down, it's like a little knife in my heart. Like, I need you guys to be around, so it behooves us to help them.
Absolutely. And, you know, out of curiosity, is there a specific organization that you're going to be donating to, or is it just specific?
We aren't sure yet. Some of it obviously will probably go to NIVA, but we want to make sure that some of the money goes directly into local venues, GoFundMes, so they get money immediately instead of all of it going to a lobbying organization that, you know, especially now that we've actually had that act passed and that money will start to be distributed. I don't know what the timeline is for that actually happening, but I think that some of them probably need money now as opposed to whenever Congress is reconvened and done with nominations after the 20th.
Right. Well, I mean, good on you for doing that. I mean, I'm hopeful that it's going to produce a good amount of money to come in, because
I'm definitely learning a lot. Well, you know, because you have to entirely reframe how you look at booking a show, because normally we have to figure out what kind of draw a band has in an area, what complements that, what we can reasonably expect, you know, to kind of show up and what we hope shows up, and work that into our budgets. But for this, it's anywhere. At any time, anyone could watch it. So you have to reevaluate who you're picking and why. And it's kind of a neat change of pace, but also, you know, it's also a crapshoot to a certain extent. So, you know, we're winging it and hoping it's great. But also I've seen a bunch of other people's, you know, live stream festivals, and they seem to have gotten, you know, very good jobs. And, you know, as long as you have the right equipment, everything seems like it runs pretty well.
Yeah, I managed to watch a few of the ones that Fest has done. And
same.
Yeah, and they, you know, it sounds like they have like a decent, you know, group of people that are kind of handling like the technical side of it, making sure that when they get, like, because a lot of those are like they send the videos in pre-recorded, but then they just kind of mix them in and edit them, and you know, they fade in, fade out, and make sure that the levels are good. And then anything that's done live, I think that they're just making sure that there's at least one person who can handle all the audio and visual stuff. And I mean, you know, this isn't like their first rodeo by any stretch. I mean,
no,
you know, they've been doing this stuff now.
It's just weird though. Like, we've never had to work with video people before. So now we're like, oh, we need a V1. Okay.
Right.
Like, we did a show, our show for Black Star and Dead Prez that we did at the Anthem that we sold out over there. Like, we got to the venue and Mos Def looked at us and he was like, I want the Blues Brothers to play during my set. And we were like, oh, okay. So we had to like go buy a copy of Blues Brothers online and download it and then figure out how to make it, you know, show up over the giant LED screen that we had behind that was running. But like, we winged it. We didn't have a V1. We just figured it out.
Yeah. Wow. What an interesting request.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's an interesting guy. I walked into the dressing room to introduce myself and asked him how he wanted to get paid. And he lifted up his arms and he goes, "Should I shave my armpits?" And I was like, "No, I don't think you need to. I think you're fine."
That's killer. Out of curiosity, so I'm not super familiar with the Baltimore scene because I've managed to play some venues over on the East Coast, but I've never played in Baltimore. So what's kind of a little bit of the history of the Baltimore scene? Like, who were some bands that I may have heard of?
Let's see. You put me on the spot now.
I'm just genuinely curious, Yeah.
I mean, radio play, you're gonna hear like Jimmy's Chicken Shack and Good Charlotte came out of the area, and like OAR, Ballyhoo. I think who else is. And then, like, I mean, I've been going to shows in this area since I was 15, and I will be 40 in a month. So, I've been around a while. At this point,
you're close enough to DC to where, like, I'm sure that a lot of people were probably just going to DC for a lot of shows.
Well, so DC and Baltimore are not the same market, depending on what size band you are.
I see. Okay.
If you are a very small band and you're new, you can absolutely play Baltimore and DC on the same tour because nobody knows who you are yet. If you're a mid-sized band, you can't because you need everybody to come to either place you play. And then when you're a huge band, you really could play both if you want, but realistically, you're not going to.
Right. Okay, got it. Yeah, because I've never played DC either, so that would be another question that I would ask somebody of the same, from that area.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just curious about Baltimore in particular because everyone's aware of like Discord and like all that stuff, but like I'm just not really sure if I know of like many bands that are from Baltimore, per se.
I'm trying to think like who else. So technically Kill Lincoln is DC, but some of it's Baltimore.
Okay.
And not anymore, I don't think. I don't know if anyone still lives in Baltimore. I think who else is out of here. Oh, Warren Women is from Baltimore.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? Yes. Yeah, I should have known that. Yeah, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
And Sharptooth is from Baltimore, although some of the band doesn't have the original members in it anymore.
Okay.
And Lauren moved to Boston. But Lauren actually used to be part of Feed the Scene, which is kind of crazy. Like back in the day.
Nice. And so I actually got introduced to you first down at Fest.
Yes, because I was handing out desserts to everyone.
Yeah, and I think Mike Terry was who introduced me.
I love Mike Terry.
Mike's great. Yeah, I love those guys. Jukebox are great.
Absolutely, Jukebox Romantics are some of our best friends.
Yeah, they're great. And I was really like struck by the fact it's like you were part of this whole group that were handing out these treats and like I'll be honest with you.
I steal everyone. Well, if anyone looks remotely useful, I'm like, yoink, you belong to me.
Well,
I've collected people over the years.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, like I was a little taken back. I was like, what are you doing? Like you're handing me these treats? Like, is there pot in this? And like,
oh, that's the first question we always get.
Yeah.
Is there weed in this? No. Cereal's expensive, or cereal's cheap, drugs are expensive.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not giving away free drugs. I'm not. Sorry.
Well, and I mean, I'm putting myself on the spot here, but like the last time I did any edibles was a bad scene. So I was just like, I don't know if I should do this or not. So.
Oh no, the first year I brought, because I've been to 10 fests as well.
Okay.
Or at least this year would have been my 10th fest, I think.
Okay.
If it had happened. But like the first year we brought them, people were so confused. They were like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like we were at an after party at a warehouse parking lot one of the nights, and it was like 4:00 in the morning, and a cop rolls up and is just like, waiting for us to finish and go away because they just want to make sure that we do eventually leave. Like, no one was being a dick and the cops were fine. But I walked over to try to like, distract the cop and let everyone clean up. And I'm like offering the cop dessert. And he's like, is there drugs in this? I was like, do you really think I would walk up to a cop and give you drugs? And he's like, people have done it. And I was like, wow, that's ballsy.
Yeah, like, that's super ballsy.
Really interesting. Nope, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to go to jail tonight.
Also, realistically, I'm 90% certain there's no way he ate it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You still can't,
Right. So out of curiosity, I mean, so does the feed the scene work that you do extend beyond working with just artists? Like, do you do any kind of like community outreach or anything like that?
So we have before, we have not recently, just because we had been low on funds for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've run kitchens we fed 300 or 400 homeless people a couple of years ago with some other friends of ours who we were working with. That was exciting. It was the largest kitchen I've run. But I mean, we have catered music festivals before. Like, we donate a portion of our services to Four Chord, and we they pay us to feed their guests and their VIP guests, and we feed all the artists for free. And we've raised money for other things before, and hopefully in the next coming year we'll be able to start doing that again. But some of that we won't be able to really start doing until everyone gets back to work, because we really don't want to have to ask people for money until they're financially secure themselves.
Sure. Yeah. And with one thing I was gonna kind of talk about a little bit earlier was, so this whole model that you have, I mean, as much as you pointed out, like, it's not like you're like one of the only places that are doing this. Like, this isn't like
well, so technically we're two separate companies. Feed the Scene Productions is its own for-profit, and then the Feed the Scene Foundation is the nonprofit. So we had to separate them financially because it was getting too complicated.
Right. Yeah, well, and that makes sense, especially like when you're having to like deal with like taxes and stuff. But
and especially like once we did that show for the Wu-Tang Clan and we actually made money on a show, we had to do actual taxes.
Right. Yeah, Wu-Tang, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. We've done like 7 or 8 shows with Method Man and Redman, and then we did one with all of Wu-Tang and Redman, and we actually got Old Dirty Bastard's son to come in and do his parts. It was pretty fun. It was an amazing show.
That's awesome. That's sick. Now, what I was gonna say was, like, it feels like a very like almost like European type of thing, like where.
Oh yeah, we always get is either like Europe or summer camp.
Yeah, right. Because like you talking about the idea that like you might have like this industrial band and like this pop punk band like on the same night, and all of a sudden at the end of the night, like everyone's friends. I personally think that's awesome. And
it's really fun for the most part. Like, it's so much fun when people come back, because then you have stories to talk about and you actually know each other a little bit. Like, it's always neat to get to know people, because for the most part, unless it's like bitter cold and snowing, everyone wants to sit on the porch for a little bit and just have some decompressed time. So a lot of times we'll just sit out there and just talk about life, and you just learn so much more about people than you would if you just met them in line at the merch table for 5 seconds. Like, right. I've gotten to know a lot of people that I probably never would have met otherwise really well, which I am really grateful for, because a lot of them add really neat and wonderful parts of my life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, because, not to sound like a complete like weirdo, but like my only real like experience like with Baltimore on any kind of like major scale is like stuff that I've seen in like The Wire,
Yeah. I don't live there.
I'm sorry.
I don't live there.
Yeah.
But everyone's always like, oh, can you take us to see where The Wire was filmed?
Right.
No, I can't, because people live there, and you don't treat where people live like a tourist attraction.
Right. Yeah. And like, it's obviously like you can't like just typecast everyone that lives in Baltimore as like, oh, like The Wire, blah, but it is like,
don't get me wrong, there are parts of it that are like that, but those people live there, and they're, for the most part, most of everybody who lives in Baltimore is pretty decent people. I really enjoy living here. I didn't grow up here, but I like it a lot. I grew up 30 minutes south in Annapolis, which is like pinkies up and boat shoes.
Oh, I see. Got it. Yeah. I mean, it's a city that I'd love to come and play. I mean, hopefully
well, you have a place to stay.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, ideally we could make that happen.
Sure.
I mean, like Tsunami Bomb right now is like really itching to play more shows because we didn't really get an opportunity to really promote our last album.
When we met at Fest, we definitely were like, please come out. Like, I'll throw a show for you.
Totally. Yeah. And we would. Yeah. I mean, because Baltimore.
Great. It's a date in 2022.
I'm sorry?
It's a date in 2022.
We're doing it. Yes. Putting it on record.
Down.
Tommy Bomb, Baltimore.
I'll get my spreadsheets ready.
All right. We're going to do it. And hopefully we'll have like a cool, like industrial goth band to like shack up.
You never know.
Yeah. You know, actually on that note, I mean, so you have this place set up and you have the bunk beds. More often than not, would you say that the evenings go quiet, or is it really just like depending on the night, or do a lot of them kind of end up with
depends on the night, who's here, and how far into their tour they are?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
If it's someone we know really well, it doesn't matter how far they're into their tour. We'll sit and have beers on the porch till 5 o'clock in the morning, which is generally a really dumb idea. But a lot of times, if people are really far into their tour, especially if it's midweek, they just want to sleep. When I first tell people that I do this, they're like, oh, your house must be a constant party like all the time. No. When people find out they get their own mattress and it's not on the floor and it's not dirty, they're like, oh, cool. I'm going to sneak inside and go to bed immediately.
Right.
And like the last person, whoever's the last straggler, I'll like come in and lock the door and like everybody's zonked.
Yeah.
They're just like, I wanted to go to bed immediately.
Yeah. Cause my experience is like doing, you know, touring that doesn't involve like having the luxury of like say hotels on most nights. You know, it's tricky because you'll be staying at somebody's house and it's great that they're letting you stay there like for free, or like, you know, you give them like a CD or something. But more often than not, it just becomes like a party. And like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like,
well, a lot of people also, they invite other people back from the show. We don't do that.
Right.
Like we don't allow anyone from the show to come back unless you know them. Like if you want your friends to come hang out, or you know a couple of our, like, you know, obviously with fest bands, a lot of our local friends are also friends with them. So like if you want people to come back and hang out, that's fine. But we don't allow anyone to randomly show up and try to like hang out with you.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to deal with it either because I don't want to have to kick people out. Also, the first rule of Feed the Scene is no spunk in the bunk. So you're not getting laid in the house.
That's awesome.
I have to clean the sheets and I don't want to deal with your crusty grossness.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea too. Well,
second rule is don't die. So far, we're really good on the first two rules.
I love it. Yeah. Hey, I think that if you can fall within those lines, like you're doing okay, and you're respecting the home that you're being welcomed into. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's so awesome. And you know, so I have a couple of questions I'd like to throw out to everyone. The first one being, you know, being so plugged into the music scene as you are, who are some artists that you really love that maybe people don't really know about, and who would you like to give a shout out to?
I think the hardest thing with that question is not knowing who people wouldn't know about, because when you end up so involved, especially in the community that we're a part of, everybody knows each other. And up and coming is so like such a weird term, because everybody's up and coming in our scene. Even the people who are at the top of our scene are up and coming for other people's communities.
Sure.
So the stuff that I really love, more likely than not, a lot of people really also already love it. But most of what I've been listening to recently is a lot of the stuff that Bad Time Records is putting out, because I really love ska a lot. And like Les and Jake's new album, which obviously they're very well known.
Right.
But like Kill Lincoln is on that label, and Bad Operation is a new band that Brian from Pears is in. And Pears are also really good friends of ours. What else have I been listening to? Yeah,
that Bad Operation record is like,
it's so good.
It's so good. And if it hadn't come out at the very end of the year, I think it would have probably ended up being on like a bunch of people's like best of the year.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely picked up a bunch of traction. They're doing so good with that label, like just solid management all around.
Well, it certainly helps.
Like the new Goalkeeper just came out too, and I love that. I like happy music for the most part.
Nice. Yeah. Well, bad time, like, Mike's a great guy, and,
Yeah.
he's very, good about just being like true to the ska punk scene. And I think
Absolutely.
that that's something that works really well for them. And in that, like, they focus on ska
Also, he's an
punk.
organized business person, so he's able to actually like get stuff done, which is awesome.
Right. Right. And, having like that soul market to kind of like work with, I think is a huge benefit for them. Like one of the things that like my label, struggles with sometimes is just that, I work with bands from multiple genres. So it's not as easy to like target one audience, all the time.
Yes, because you can't just automatically sell the next album that's coming out to everyone else in your fan base. No, that totally makes sense.
Right. But for Bad Time, I mean, I think it's great, and they're killing it. That bands are all good. But yeah, what was the band you said? Goalkeeper? Was that it?
Yeah, Goalkeeper.
Okay.
They're
yeah, I'll
pop
have
punk.
to check them out. Never heard of them. Yeah.
They're out of Philly. They're also really
okay.
good friends of ours.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a band that I've never heard of. So, and I'm pretty plugged in too. So I'd like to think I am, but yeah. Yeah, and so the last question I really have for you, and I know it's kind of an absurd question, but if you were stuck on an island and you only had 5 records to live with for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Okay, so the first and most important album that I would ever pick is always going to be Paul Simon's Graceland. It is an abjectly perfect album, start to finish, all songs.
Paul Simon's
great. And then weirdly, my next pick will be Spin Doctor's Pocket Full of Kryptonite, because that album is just chill forever. Like I still have that actual CD in my car. I love them. I actually ended up getting to meet them a couple of years ago, and I'm friends with a couple of them on Facebook. They're super nice. It's really interesting because I didn't know much about them past their first 2 albums, because obviously they kind of faded out of a very, very public view after that, because music styles kind of changed. But they're like a crazy jam band, and they're like ridiculously talented. And I hate jam bands. Like, it's not a thing that I very much enjoy, because I like words. I want to sing. So when you're noodling for 40 minutes, I'm like, cool, I don't dance and I'm not on drugs. So can we get to the part where I sing again? Because I can't participate.
Right. No, I honestly, I applaud you for that pick, because that actually arguably is a very good record. And
yeah, start to finish, all the songs are totally chill. Like I, again, have that CD in my car in case my Bluetooth or everything in the car blows up and I can only use my CD player.
Yeah. And I mean, I owned it when I was younger, like in high school. I had a copy of it. And so little fun fact, I mean, I'm sure you're probably well aware, but if you go on their Spotify, they have some songs that have insane numbers of plays.
Yeah,
like
they're really good.
Yeah, I mean, like they are absolutely like one of those bands from the 90s that just have like some of those iconic songs that will, I think,
and
go
they
down.
had so many. It's amazing when you listen, like how many songs there are on that record that are just so good that you don't remember that you liked.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. That was number 2.
Oh God. Oh, and then I just got sidetracked again, because I'm like, oh God, well, I got to put Ovix and everything after in there, but like, I don't know if I want to keep that forever. This is such a hard choice. And then like, I would need like a Gin Blossoms record, but also like, I definitely need Less Than Jake's Anthem, because that's like one of my favorite albums of all time. And if we're going with somewhat newy things, I would pick like Brian Fallon's Painkillers.
Okay.
And I would pick Bandelier's Forever. I think that's what it's called. It's their most recent that they put out. I love that album. Like, I was having a really rough time at the beginning of the year. I listened to it pretty much on repeat for like 5 months.
Now, were they called the Vandaliers or the Bandoliers?
The Vandaliers.
Okay.
They're Americana kind of stuff. They have an album called Amerikinda. Yeah, it's called Forever.
That's cool.
I love them. They're amazing. It's like if someone took Americana but put ska in it. Like, it has horns. It's super fun. It's like their live show is ridiculous. Like, they're so much fun.
That's rad. Yeah. Like, there's something about.
I just like when you put horns in anything. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Put horns in it. They'll be better.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say, like, there's something about like having a horn section that, kind of takes any type of music and somehow makes it more like positive.
Yes,
like,
agreed.
You know, like I'd be hard pressed. I mean,
even ska core's still happy.
Well, yeah, like
very loud but happy.
Well, like even a band like Link 80 or like the Voodoo Glow Skulls, you know, who are they do a lot of like minor key stuff. Like it's still like kind of upbeat, you know?
Yeah.
Like I think one of the only bands that I can think of that's in like the rock-esque genre off the top of my head that has a horn in it that is kind of sad sounding is the band Morphine. Are you familiar with the band Morphine?
I'm not
at all?
But I'll check them out.
Well, yeah, I mean they're no longer together.
That's okay. I'm sure they still have music somewhere online.
Yeah, they do. I happen to absolutely love that band. The singer passed away many years ago, but it's really interesting stuff.
I was about to say I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm like, wait, he's not your singer.
No, yeah.
I'm sorry for all of our loss.
But I mean, even like a band like Rocket from the Crypt or something like that, it's like, you know, they have like, they're not a ska band and they have horns, but it just gives it like that extra kind of tinge where you're just like, yeah,
just
this
a depth
really
of sound that you don't get without a horn section.
Yeah, and then like Atom Age is another band that's like that.
I love them. They've stayed at my house too.
Oh yeah, they're great guys. Yeah, I love the Atom Age. Well, Rachel, it's been so great to have you on here and to talk to you. And I applaud you for everything that you do with Feed the Scene. That's so incredible. I mean, talk about just a huge like accomplishment, and what a great contribution to the scene, you know, is really what I was trying to say. So thank you on behalf of everyone that does play music and does tour and do that. You know, I'll
next year we'll have some music community again, because this is the longest I've gone without housing anyone else. It's so weird.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm sure like doing it for so long and then all of a sudden like having to put it all to a halt, it just must feel so empty. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was so weird. Like when everyone was running out of toilet paper in the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't have to buy toilet paper for 6 months.
No doubt.
Like that's how much toilet paper I had on hand in the house, because we usually go through it really fast. So like everyone's like, I'm running out of toilet paper. And I'm like, I didn't have to buy toilet paper till September.
Totally. I know, what a crazy time that was, you know, like
so weird. It was
so weird. Anyways. Yeah, Rachel, I'll be sure to leave some links, you know, for, you know, Feed the Scene and all the stuff that you're doing. And hopefully we'll talk to you real soon and see you in real life.
Sounds good. Thank you.